Welcome to the Overflow Worship Podcast, where we serve and support leaders so you can serve and support your local church.
Welcome to the Overflow Worship Podcast. I am so excited for you to hear this interview today. And I just wanted to give you a little bit of context about the interview you're about to hear. It is with Jim Wideman, and he is an incredible pastor and leader. He has been in children's ministry for decades and just has a wealth of knowledge and wisdom to share with you, so much so that we had to divide it into two parts. So today you're going to hear part one of a two-part interview with Jim Wideman. You're going to learn about authentic leadership and leadership for the long haul. So buckle up, tune in. You do not want to miss this. Hey everybody, welcome to the Overflow Worship Podcast. I'm your host, Andrea Olson, and I am so excited to have a very special guest with me today, joining me all the way from Nashville. And actually today it's snowy there, so we have that in common, Minnesota and Nashville. But I would love to welcome Jim Wideman to the podcast. Thank you so much for being here today.
Oh, it is amazing to be here. Thanks so much, Andrea, for having me on. And what an honor, what a privilege, and it is cold in Las Vegas.
Oh, man. Well, I know you guys are probably breaking out your coats and snow pants and hats and all of that, but we are staying inside here because it's 20 below zero. So we're just not going anywhere. Yes.
Yeah, we're staying inside at 17 above zero. So
Yes. Well, I would love it, Jim, if you would tell all of our listeners a little bit about yourself for those who don't know you.
Yeah, I have had the privilege of being a part of ministries in my 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, and now I'm 22 for the third time. And my pastor, I work at the Belonging Co. in Nashville. My pastor always tells me, you're not old. You're just got a lot of experience. Right. And so I just quit saying that last one and just realized it's 22 for the third time.
There you go.
But it's kind of fun. But I'm on staff at the Belonging. I'm the executive operations pastor, which means I get to play with getting rid of the snow in the parking lot as well as HR and business stuff. And everybody likes me on payday, make sure the checks get there and all that kind of fun stuff. But also, I have been a children's pastor forever. And so I'll always probably sit in that children's seat because that's just so near and dear to my heart. I've had the privilege of getting to be called one of the fathers of the modern children's ministry movement. And so I don't ever see myself out of it, but I'm kind of a utility guy. I've had everybody's job that's less staff until we hire someone else at all the different churches I've worked at. And it's just been fun to just lead and grow. And, all of us, we're not where we started, thank the Lord. And it's just a journey, and it's a fun journey with everything. And so we were just sharing beforehand a lot of the common friends and things that we have and worship. And we laugh at the Belonging because the two least attended days at the Belonging are the Grammys and the Doves.
Yes.
And it's because our whole church has been nominated.
Yes.
And so I even had to pay attention to the Doves this year. My oldest daughter won her first Dove, which Yancey for Best Children's Album of the Year.
Wow.
So it's a fun place to work, and it's even a more fun place to worship.
Wow, that's amazing. And just another small world moment. I know your daughter, Whitney. So that's,
oh my goodness! Now that most people know her sister, but
well, I know who she is too, and just does great children's ministry too. But I also met Whitney last year, so that's so funny. That's crazy.
Yeah. Whitney's a makeup artist, so
Yes.
She knows people the rest of us don't because she's done their makeup.
Yeah,
So
yes.
it's kind of
She's
fun.
amazing. Well, I love that we are getting to chat today, and I love what we're going to talk about. And I would love to kick it off with just talking a little bit about your new book, Authentic Leadership That Lasts.
Yeah.
And, I imagine that you have just a wealth of knowledge and because of your experience. And, even from being at the Belonging from early on, you said from year 3, is that right? Up until now?
Yeah, right before the 3rd birthday.
And so being a part of laying the groundwork in the children's ministry and just all over, throughout the ministry. And so I would love it if you would tell our readers just a little bit about the premise of the book, and then we'll kind of take it from there.
Yeah. The basics of the book is that you can be a leader. Nobody's born to be a leader. Everybody's born, but they're not born a leader. And there's choices, there's things, but rather than leadership being about what you do, it's about who you are. And it really starts after that heart. I know, we talk a lot in worship ministry about you can't be a worship leader if you're not a worshiper. Yeah. And whether you're on stage or off, being a worshiper is first and foremost. And that's the way it is with leadership. You're just saying, Lord, I choose to be an example. I choose to remember when I'm pointing my finger at others, there's 3 more fingers looking back at me. And that authentic leadership comes out of the heart. And, after all these years of ministry, the hardest person I lead is me. Of all the people I manage and lead, I'm the toughest. And this book talks about if you want to lead, here's some basics and some things that will help you, whether it's time management, whether it's your walk with the Lord. Ministries comes from an overflow. It's like a bank account. You got to make deposits before you can make withdrawals. And so, it talks about problem solving, talks about time management, talks about a lot of practical things. But the thing I love about this book is I actually wrote it. I wrote a book called Children's Ministry Leadership, the You Can Do It Guide, more than 20 years ago. And it was really because I realized as children's pastors, there's one group of kids, but 3 groups of adults we have to lead. First of all, no kid has a driver's license, so you've got to work well with parents. Yeah. Number 2, you got to work well with adult leaders. I mean, children's ministry is the one area that, you have to have people to represent you because of all the age difference and things. And so just getting everybody on the same page and moving them together. But then also there's that level of leadership above you. Worship leaders know this. How well they do has a lot to do with how they communicate the leadership above them, understanding the heart of the house, going in the same direction, and all those things. So there's 3 groups of adults, 1 group of kids that I'm working with. And I realized that the way we train children's folks, we didn't talk a lot about leadership. And so I wrote this book, published it, group publishing, and I got on the college and seminary textbook circuit and all that. And so I kept bugging them about, let's redo it, because nobody wants to read a book that still has stuff about tapes and cassettes and all this language that just said, well, that person's out of touch. But it was just a book was published a long time ago. And one of the great things that happened in 2020 is the publishing rights came back to me. And when I read the book, I realized 2 things. Number 1, I'd learned more since I wrote this book than what I knew. And the second thing I realized that I was not the same person now that I was when I wrote it. Realized that this growth and this journey, it's step by step. The Lord leads us, and I was a totally different leader. I was so much more concerned about building a team and empowering others than I had been when I wrote the book the first time about here's what you do, rather than here's what you can help people be. And this is how. And so that's really the story. So when I started going to update things, I realized I need to rewrite this whole book. So really, I kept the chapter names and everything else. We changed all the names to protect the innocent. And so it talks about stuff from the Belonging. It talks about stuff from church number 1. The Belonging is the 6th church that I've got to be a part of in my ministry. And so I've got to experience crazy growth 3 times. So this is what's, such an honor to do it once, but for the Lord to let me be a part of, just enormous growth and setting a foundation that can be built upon. Now I've got to do it for the 3rd time. And so it's, that's really what this book. And so it's my first attempt. You can't spend almost 5 decades ministering to children and not mention children's ministry. But at the same time, I've written this book, whether you're leading small groups, whether you're a worship pastor, whether you're the youth pastor, or, family pastor. This is just ideas to help you be a better leader and help those around you be a better leader.
That's amazing. Hey everybody, we are taking a quick break from today's episode because I wanted to tell you about a free gift that I created for you as worship leaders leading up to the Easter season. We've been talking a bit about Easter and how it's important to prepare in advance, and so I created a done-for-you Easter set list, and I'm very excited to share it with you. It's completely free, and all you have to do is head to overflowresource.com/setlist. That's singular. overflowresource.com/setlist. And you enter your name and your email, and you will get it in your inbox for free. I hope it's a blessing to you. All right, back to today's episode. And, I love hearing how many ministries you've been able to be a part of, because it actually, it strikes me because now it seems like turnover for pastors is really high, or worship leaders, children's pastors, youth pastors, and I know there's a lot of different reasons, but, just because it's difficult, because, they burn out, all of those things. And so for you to have, 6 over such a wide number of years is incredible, because you have actually experienced the long haul, right? Like you have been with a church for more than just a very short term swing in, swing out. And so that's where the depth of your wisdom and experience comes from, is because you've walked it. And I think that's amazing.
Yeah, it's crazy. There was a pattern that developed, and when we talk about this in the book, there was a pattern that I would, my first 3 churches, I basically stayed 4 or 5 years. And in year 3, I saw some difficulty. I saw some things, and I didn't push through. And when I got to church number 4, I realized that I had to break that chain, and I had to realize that in your marriage, my wife and I came in. We've been married 43 years in November, and so we came into this thing where you don't use the D word, and she was the one individual in my life who could have a bad day no matter what, till my children popped up. And I was there, good or bad. And I remember going to work for a pastor, and this was at church number 5. And he asked me, he said, what kind of relationship? And I just worked for 17 years at church prior. He said, what what kind of relationship are we going to have? And I looked at him and said, I hope a good one. And he asked a question that really rocked my world. He said, can I have a bad day around you? And I said, well, yes. And I want to have a bad day around you. So we made a covenant together that we weren't going to use the quit word or the frustration word. We were going to allow people to have a bad day just like you do with your spouse. You just love them in spite of it. And, I think that's the best perception change for me to break that kind of habit of getting frustrated on year 3 and either leaving on 4 or just toughing it out for Jesus to year 5, was realize that I came here because the Lord gave me marching orders, and I am going to stay here until the Lord says I've got something else for you to do, and I finished what I've called you to do there. And so, that was the crazy thing. When I started going to the belonging, I was traveling, working with a ministry called Orange, training children's workers as well as speaking and things on my own and doing things. And when I started going to the belonging, Pastor Alex and Henry just said, hey, would you just come to staff meeting as a volunteer and help us put into the staff? And it wasn't something that I was seeking a position. I was making a living and enjoying what I was doing. But then as my heart started turning toward that vision for Nashville, I'm an old musician, and so my heroes have always played guitar. And so I go to this church where it really was started because musicians in Nashville couldn't go to church. When the belonging started, it's Pastor Henry didn't come over to start a church. He came over to mix records. And so he started asking people where they go to church. And they said, well, we get on the bus Wednesday night at midnight. We come back wee hours in the morning Sunday or the middle of the afternoon Sunday. And, the first thing churches started doing years ago was cutting out Sunday evening service. So, if you're going to be gone for a few days, you don't want to go to midweek service right before you leave your family. You want to spend time with them. So Henry people started asking, will you start a Bible study? And they started on Tuesday night. And that's when we still have a Tuesday night service because musicians are free on Tuesday night. So this thing started, our church started as just an organic Bible study for musicians who weren't involved in church. And, fast forward now 8 years, and it's just so fun that worship leaders can volunteer. They can use their married names instead of their stage names. Yeah. And it's so funny. We had a country guy that goes to our church, and we were talking on Sunday, and I was driving a golf cart over to our parking lot, and somebody said, isn't that so-and-so and so-and-so? And I said, yes. And they said, he just seems like a normal guy. I said, he is a normal guy, and he loves Jesus with all his heart. And, it's just great to have a place where people can be real. So that's how our church started. And now it's been fun. When the church began, everybody was so young, we didn't have kids. So we didn't really have a kids ministry. Till after the church was a few years old. And, all these folks started meeting and getting married. Next thing, families were coming. And so the main reason we started a service other than Tuesday night was so that we could have kids ministry and stuff on Sundays. And, so it's kind of funny because we started a Sunday afternoon 4:00 service. And everybody thought we were being intentional, and it was just the only time we could rent the building. There was already a church there in the morning. And God just blessed that, but it met a need. So people off the bus that had families, they could make it to the 4:00 service. And that's where our children's ministry really started. And now we're just like everybody else, got that Sunday morning service, but that's only happened in the last about 2.5 years, us meeting on Sunday.
Wow, that's amazing. I love that. I love hearing that story and just how, it's so clearly God, because that wasn't the intention of Alex and Henry. And it was, it was like, we're just open to you, God. It wasn't the reason they came, like you said, to Nashville. And just amazing.
And I think seeing our vision come to pass and no matter where we are, is just what you said. It's just God. Yeah. And it's just allowing him to just have control rather, the thing about musicians and worship leaders is they have dreams, but that surrendering those dreams and goals to the Lord and say, Lord, I just want to be used by you first and foremost, whatever that looks like, and walking out those steps.
Yeah. Yes, absolutely. And that, like you were saying before, is the heart of an authentic leader, right? That's where it's got to begin.
It all starts in the heart and everything proceeds out of that. And it's just overflow and bubbling out. Whatever you're full of, when you're shaken, that's what's going to spill out. And so, it's important that we fill ourselves with the right stuff. And before you can be filled, you got to first be empty and allow the Lord to clean out all that old residue and those things so that he can fill us up, so that when we're shaking, and we're going to be shaking. Yeah. I mean, we're in the middle of a worldwide pandemic, but God's still moving. Yeah. And he's still doing amazing things. Yeah. And we just have to allow him to be in control.
Yeah. Yes, absolutely. Amen. Well, there you have it, the end of part 1 of my conversation with Jim Wideman. Friends, you're not going to want to miss the conclusion of this conversation next time on the Overflow Worship Podcast. And just as a reminder, if you missed it in the middle, you do not want to miss out on the opportunity to get your free, done for you Easter set list. So head to overflowresource.com/set list. That's singular, overflowresource.com/set list, and enter your email and it will be sent to you for free. I hope it's a blessing to you. Have a great rest of your day. And until next time, we'll see you later.
You've been listening to the Overflow Worship Podcast. If you enjoy our podcast, please take a moment and leave us a 5-star rating and a written review, which helps us reach more people. New episodes are released every other Monday. So until next time, thank you for listening.